again, we haven't gotten to full pads. We've gone 2 helmets, 2 shells, but we're a lot better than we were when we walked off the field in April. And so I think anybody that's watched us can see that. Does that what that turns into in terms of wins and losses? We've got a long ways to go to determine that, but we've got more talent out there. We've got more bodies. We're better up front on both sides of the ball. So, it's positive, but there's just a lot of work still left to do.
Yeah. So you guys are a lot better than when you walked off the field in the spring. What makes you kind of say that, and what kinds of improvements have you guys made?
Recruiting.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the number one game. I think we've signed 15 or 16 guys since April. And so I think that's the number one thing. We've added more talent and depth, and depth's hard to find, especially up front on both sides of the ball, O-line and D-line, and we've certainly added that, but I think we've added some key skill guys as well. So again, we've got to go out and execute at a high level and win games, but we've got more talent than we did, and that's definitely a start.
Out of that group, who's kind of stood out the most so far?
It's hard to say, right now. I mean, we're 4 practices in. I wouldn't say that there's this guy's, again, 2 helmet practices. It's, we'll have a better idea after Saturday. We get a little controlled scrimmage in and have a little bit better idea. But, you see some talent. I mean, I think you look at the receivers, and those guys are talented. I mean, you're starting with Xavier, who's been here. Christian, obviously those are big receivers. But then, adding Brandon Johnson, who's another 6'3" kid, and then just adding Jalen Johnson, the transfer from Arizona. I mean, that all of a sudden you got 4 receivers that are close to 6'2" or taller, and Jalen's probably the shortest, probably at a right around 6'2", 6'1.5", and he's the fastest. So, and then if you want to get into some different personnel and get into empty, and we talked about this, and I think Cyrus Wallace is as good as tight end as there is. I mean, I honestly think he could have played for me at Arizona or Cal. And, he's 6'3", probably about 230, and he runs really, really well. So those are 5 big dudes that, you got to cover. So just, that's just some of the guys. I mean, you look on defense and, some new faces out there are certainly helping us. I think Chester Gaffar is going to be, you look at him and he's got some twitch to him, 6'4", probably about 260. Cortland Horton's playing well. He's been here. But just those are just to name a few of the guys. But again, we've got to put it together and play well. That's all that matters.
Yeah. With a couple more things for you. With the quarterback situation, I know you're probably sick of talking about that by now, but is it still kind of between Tyler and Hunter, or how's that kind of shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we talk about Tyler and Hunter, who have had a good spring, but, Sagan has game experience too, and he moves the ball, and he does a nice job. But I think, when you talk about those 3 guys, have all had some playing time. Tyler's obviously got the most experience and, has moved the football around pretty well here the first few days. And so, yeah, I still think, we got to get into some live scrimmage looks and see how these guys, respond under pressure.
Well, the offensive line, I know that was kind of a point of emphasis for you guys coming out of the spring. What kinds of, in terms of, improvements or guys you've added, how's that kind of all shaping up so far?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at us just to the naked eye, we're a different football team up front. Isaiah Holum, Sir. I mean, you just those 2 guys. Jude. I mean, the 2 freshmen and Jaden and Hud. I mean, those guys. We've added a couple of walk-ons, but those guys, those 3 guys in particular, the older guys, are bigger, more athletic, and they give us some depth and guys that have played some football. So I think just in watching those guys, the key is up front, across your team, is you got to stay healthy. But up front, I think, is where it gets hard to really acquire depth. And so I'm pleased with what those guys are doing so far. Coach Payne's doing an excellent job of getting those guys, schooled up, and they're executing at a high level out there at practice. So it's good to see.
I want to ask about a couple guys in particular. With Jacob Angel, who I guess was out with an injury during spring, what's his status?
He's good.
Okay.
He's good. He's practicing. He's played a lot of football, and we like him a lot. And so he's healthy, fully healthy, and it's going to be good to go. And again, he's played a lot of football, which you can't put a price on experience. And so big body like him, we're looking forward to great things from him this fall.
And then one of your running backs, Demir, who's an Oregon State transfer. Is he gonna be in the mix? Or
Yeah, like him a lot. Explosive, twitchy. He had a nice run the other day, a little jump cut that you watch him. He's different, with that explosiveness. So really excited about his future and what he's going to do to help us here at ISU.
Are there any guys that are like changing positions that we should know about, or how's that?
No, not right now. I think everybody's pretty standard as far as I can think of off the top of my head from the spring.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody that we've switched, from O or D. I think it's pretty straight right now, at least off the top of my head.
Sure. And then Steve mentioned a few number changes. Are there any
Don't ask me about that. I have no idea.
That one I knew that might be a little harder.
Yeah, that one I tell those guys, when you start playing well, I'll remember your number. Until then, I'm not worried about it.
That's fair. In terms of getting to know you guys as two new coaches, you know them, but obviously coaching with them with. Pierre and Devin, how's that kind of coming together so far?
Well, I've watched Pierre coach for a long time. He came, when he went to Arizona and he was a highly recruited tailback out of Madison High School in San Diego. Went through his first season, then had some health issues and had to, hang it up, and no fault of his. And then he came back like a year and a half later and joined back up with us as a student assistant and started coaching. And then when he finished, we signed him on as a graduate assistant. So I saw Pierre coach for a couple of years, there before I left to Cal. And then, he stayed on with Marcel Yates, who's a good friend of mine, and coached with Marcel for, I think, one more year before, I think it might have been 2 more years, actually. They're through Sumlin's era, right? So he was there, worked with those guys. So they had nothing but positive things to say about him. Guys that were on that staff that are friends of mine, really went hard, to vouch for him. I've seen him and I feel really comfortable with him. And Devin, I hadn't seen coach because he played for us, and then he got right into the coaching ranks when he got done, and he was with Rod Smith, a good buddy of mine at Illinois for a couple of years. And so, again, those guys all saying good things about him. And they both have come in, professionals, and haven't missed a beat. So I think the kids really like him, and I expect good things and a bright future for both of those guys.
I was also curious, with you guys signing Regan Baker from Australia, the punter, I know Ian Hershey also kicked and punted in high school. How is that going to be kind of split up between those two?
Yeah, I want to have a kicker and a punter. I think when you talk about the physiology of kicking and punting, it's two different things, And Ian Hershey is a very talented young man, and you watch him, you can see it out there. You don't even have to know anything about football, and you can see the ball is different when it comes off his foot. Yeah. But even as good as he is, to take a true freshman and try and have him kick and punt, it's a lot. And so, we feel good about Regan, obviously coming from Australia. I've had a lot of work with those guys over the last, 6 or 7 years. We signed Thomas here late in the summer. Transfer that has, experience both kicking and punting, and I think he's very capable of coming in and pushing, those guys for the job. And so both kicking and punting, he's kind of a dual guy. And so I think we've got some depth there to where we were when we got here in the spring and we had 0 specialists on the roster. I mean, we're not near where I want to be as a special teams guy,
sure,
but we're a whole heck of a lot better than we were in the spring when we had nobody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, how does that, I mean, you're obviously, you are coming off years of being a special teams guy. Like, how does having those 3 guys in the mix, how do you kind of handle that? And what have you kind of seen out of those guys?
Well, I think, it's early again, too, just like everything else. It's just, we're not as deep as we need to be, as I just mentioned. So you have to control the reps. We've added a slack to our Connor Slack to our depth chart as well as a kicker. So we have a 3rd kicking leg as well.
Okay.
And you need that depth in the course of camp because you got to catch balls. You need returners to get work, but then you can't wear your guys out that you're trying to develop and get ready for the season. So it's nothing that I'm not used to, but I'm used to having a little bit more depth. It's just you got to manage it a little closer, and you got to put those guys on a pitch count, and we'll give them a couple days where we'll kick and punt, and then they'll take a day off in the course of practice, when everyone else is practicing. And so we just try and really hold those guys to a pitch count, and you balance it that way.
Is there a part of you that's still kind of like drawn to coaching special teams, like in practice like this, because you're used to it?
Yeah, I'm always going to coach special teams. We're going to be good on special. We're going to be a good football team here, period. But we're going to be, there's a big emphasis on special teams. I got a good offensive coordinator. I got a good defensive coordinator. I got a good special teams coordinator. But that's what I've done for a lot of my career. I think you can win games on it. I still think it's undervalued in a lot of places. It won't be here, and which is frustrating that you don't have the depth that you would like, but that's just the way it is in year one. But we're going to be a good special teams team here for sure.
Where's Connor from? Connor Swag.
He's from here. He's been going to school here.
Oh,
I don't know literally where he's from, but he's been on campus here at ISU.
Okay.
And so Ian knew him, and we got him to come out and did a little workout for us in the spring, and then we added him to the roster. And he kicked the ball well today. I mean, field goals and kickoffs. He's got strong legs, so he's a good addition to our football program.
So he was just like a regular ISU student?
Yeah, as far as I know.
And then Ian was like, hey, this guy.
He'd done a little bit of kicking. He kicked in high school, and he had been doing some stuff a little bit, and said, hey, I'm ready to come out, and I can help you guys. And he's right. He can. So.